Now, y'all didn't sit up here on Beyonce's internet and actually think Porsha was going to Africa too. Ooh, oh my God. All right, you white motherfuckers, all eyes on me. This is the I Refuse podcast. This is Mr. Fox, the I Refuse podcast. I was this close to minding my African American business. I say it all the time. Not even 24 hours after news broke that Porsha's soon-to-be ex-husband, Simon, was facing deportation. People.com reports that Porsha is divorcing the man after 15 months of marriage. Now, just like the rest of y'all, I had so many questions. I'm like, why do this on the verge of you coming back to Atlanta Housewives, which at this point we know it's getting a complete do-over. And, you know, they say Nene was never in conversations to come back, but Porsha definitely is coming back. Candy's gone. Kenya's mom, but we were kind of looking forward. Part of the reason why we wanted you to come back is you were going to finally give us African opulence, right? You know, overall opulence is very much what is needed down in Atlanta Housewives. You know, none of this contrived drama, this back and forth about a whole bunch of nothing. Ladies arguing on bus trips and trips that Bravo fronts or the production company fronts. Like, we want something when it comes to Atlanta Housewives on the same level as New York, Beverly Hills, the California series, franchise. But Atlanta just hasn't done that. To my recollection. We thought we were close with Chateau Charest, but we knew that was just too questionable to even, because none of the ladies really come from long money, except Candy, who's built her name outside of the Housewives. But other than that, everybody else's money primarily comes from the show. Porsha could have been the one to really set this shit off in the next wave for Atlanta Housewives, to really give us opulence, to really give us like African garb, to really give us some culture that doesn't revolve around, well, I have 5 master's degrees and I am a political commentator and I am a JHU professor. And that's my introduction to the show. And then, when that fades, you're going back and forth on some contrived beef with the only other African housewife on the show. I'm dropping a lot of hints as to what I'm talking about. But unfortunately, we're not getting that. And while part of me is like, dang, this really could have been what set off Atlanta Housewives, in a new direction. Because, aside from the opulent stuff, right? And aside from Porsha's behavior in the past and her spinoff being a hot mess, there are a lot of us out here that still like Porsha. Those of us that have been day one from Atlanta Housewives, coming in, watching Porsha try to be the well-to-do, keep her man happy type of wife, and watching the trade-off be somebody that just socially does not have it all together. And it was kind of giving off Phil Spector tease a little bit, if you know what I'm talking about. It was just like, this girl is not flourishing, but there's something about her that we like. And of course, it wasn't until that situation dissolved that we really got to see Porsha really come out, be a little bit more looser, be a little bit more fun, and keep Kenya on her toes along the way. Kenya wasn't ready for that, but Kenya was poking at her the whole time since, she was married. And honestly, it was just like, by the time that little blow up at the reunion happened, it was like, well, you brought it on yourself. But Porsha's been going with me since, season 4, season 5. And I know there was a point where they gave her a cooling off period, brought her back, and she was even a bigger mess. It was kind of like even more combative and lashing out. And I was just like, ooh, she got the anger management thing, and they never really gave her a fair shake after that. But aside from that, Porsha is a good time. Porsha is funny, she's witty, and she's still lively. So still pulling for her to, bring it on Atlanta Housewives, still wanted to come back. But baby, y'all can't sit up here and think that Porsha was gonna go to Africa. Like y'all don't actually think like women in Atlanta, black women in Atlanta that have the African boyfriend that is sight unseen, and they're using the relationship, a photo of the two of them together, as the basis for being on the show, like Married to Medicine, but you'll never see them. You don't actually think those are real relationships, right? Like, they had me so convinced that maybe I should look into that. Look into that to pay off some debts, pay off some loans, and then bounce once everything clears. But just, if it gets you on the show or it keeps you on the show, I mean, a paycheck is a paycheck. But, here we are realizing that Phaedra being on Married to Medicine was a dud. But think about it, like, having an African boyfriend, it's still an unserious thing. But it really doesn't pan out in marriage anyway. And a lot of y'all can be like, oh, well, she was only with him for the money and all this other stuff. I'm like, look, Simon was pursuing her. And I'm not, 100% advocate for a gold digger, but I ain't knocking a person's hustle. I'm not knocking a person that believes they should be kept in a lifestyle to which they become accustomed. And Porsha's good TV. Like, you want to see the train wreck. You want to watch a person just kind of like come into a situation, they're calm and cool, and then shit just goes left. That's ultimately what's kept like Married to Medicine on the air, Real Housewives. Like, you want to see a train wreck. So I don't I don't blame her. I don't blame Porsha to be like, look, you, you go to Africa, I'm not going. But I was having a conversation with a good girlfriend, a friend of mine earlier this morning, who got the news from me. Usually she's the one that tells me the juice. Like, she'll be like, I already seen it. But I actually, the tables have turned. I was the one that gave her the juice. We had a whole conversation about, do you think Porsha knew about this stuff? Because the story goes that back in the 80s, Simon was doing some things that just wasn't up to snuff. And ultimately that shit came to bite him in the ass. And I'm willing to bet that a benefit for him getting married, because think about it, there really wasn't a lengthy courtship between him and Porsha. And I don't even think he was with Fallon that long married either. Think about it. This has all the variables, right, of a person that is on a visa, didn't take the American citizenship test. Maybe he didn't fail, but probably came over here in his 20s or whenever on a student visa. And those of us that have watched season 4 of Good Times are familiar with that term. So I'm just going to like come up with my own little thing. So maybe Simon came over here on like a missionary kind of thing, right? A missionary, student visa, summer camp type of thing, some Red Cross kind of project back in the 80s, and realized, shit, there really isn't much money in this. Smooth talker, not a bad looking guy, because they had older pictures of him too along with the story. And wheeling and dealing, slipping and sliding, doing his thing, and was doing some stuff under the table. This is me talking. This isn't from people.com. Maybe that's what's going on, right? Simon is a great deal older than both Fallon and Porsha. And, Porsha, for those of us that have watched her time on Atlanta Housewives, her, like so many other Atlanta women that we've heard about, the African, I got an African. Like, girl, how you get this house and this Rolls Royce on a Ricky Smiley's salary? How did you go from watching your husband go to jail and you got 2 kids to you're dating an African? It's like the rebrand of a reality housewife or a reality star, right? Down in Atlanta. Well, God, I got an African. That's how I did it. And that was just the tagline. So the question that my girlfriend posed to me was, do you think she knew? And I'm like, the question is, did she care? Really? I mean, when I get with somebody, I'm not thinking about what they did in 85. Bitch, I was 3. I'm not thinking about what they did in 92, 93, 94. Do any of y'all out there run like a background check? You got these different little websites You key in the last name, first name, and if you're lucky, you might not have to pay like $50 for a full thing. But does that necessarily support the argument that Porsha was in it for the money? Because, like I said, did she really care? She cares now. But I'm curious to know how deep in it at this point was Simon before she was like, look, because 15 months isn't long when you think about it. 15 months is not that long. Um, did Porsche have a prenup? Did she have a prenup? Um, I'm hoping not, because again, it would be a smart move when you're a person in a position of you're young and juicy and loosey. You come into this lifestyle as an athlete's wife. From that, you got on to Atlanta Housewives. You started making your own dough. You parlayed that into a radio gig, and like you're a name now, and you become accustomed to a certain lifestyle. And you want to keep that lifestyle, right? So I'm hoping she either did not have one. Um, I mean, thankfully she didn't have kids by this man. Because I hate for her to be in another like Ashley Darby type of situation. Um, but there's a lot of strengths to Porsha as a personality and as a reality star, an advantage compared to like an Ashley Darby or any woman really that's in that kind of situation where there's a dependency, thus like a slow to officially divorce a person. So it's like it could go either way with Porsha. Was she in it for the money? No. It's still up in the air. But it can go either way. Like she doesn't really need a person's money because her net worth in reality TV is actually pretty good. She brings the entertainment. She has a strong personality, and she can rock them and sock them like with the best of them. So I don't know. Like it would be very smart. I'm not Porsche, so my tax bracket is a couple notches lower. Smart for her not to have had one, but could it be because she was married to him during I'm just assuming it's a government investigation that led to him facing deportation, that she too is on the hook or could be facing some stuff? I don't know. I don't know, man. But I hope she didn't have one. If she did, I hope she's protected and she still walks away with something. Like, give me half of something, but none of the trouble. Like, I don't want to wake up with FBI agents at my door talking about, look, you got to come down to Washington, D.C., and you've got to answer some questions. Because surely in those 15 months, you saw something that didn't quite add up and you didn't report it, and you were his wife for 15 months. Not common law, like legally, regular married to a man that has a track record, allegedly, for racketeering, embezzling, stealing, allegedly. And we want you to come. Okay, maybe I'm trying to turn this into a Lifetime movie, but whatever. Um, I hope another thing I hope that doesn't happen is this doesn't take a Housewives return off the table for Porsha. I don't think so. I don't think so at this point. It's already been announced. I don't know if they've already started taping when this news came out. I don't know what that means as far as what her storyline will be or what she's going to bring to Atlanta Housewives at this point. Because you're not a housewife anymore. You're not going to probably have the access to all that the lifestyle affords. And like Candy, you've tried just about everything during your run on the show. Like, I don't want to see Dennis. Nothing against, the hot dog dude. I don't want to see Dennis anymore. I don't want to see his mom and his family. What I would like to see is you and your little girl. Like, I love seeing women as mothers on these shows and doing the drop off at school and the pick up from school. I would like to see more of your mom and your sister if you guys are on good terms again. But what's your job gonna be? Hopefully they don't turn Atlanta Housewives into what VH1 did to T.I. and Tiny show, where it went from Family Hustle to T.I. and Tiny and Friends or something. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm in the minority on this. I would love to see Shamia back. I don't know if that's a bridge that's been burned. I like Shamia. But I don't know if Porsha knows enough interesting women that they could parlay into permanent peach holders for a season. Like Porsha's cool, and Kenya can be exhausting, but you need somebody of like Nene's caliber. I'm sorry, you just do. But it's going to be weird anyway, not having something that kind of like brings women together, or because Porsha and Kenya don't have a relationship. I mean, yeah, they're both mothers. Maybe that'll soften things, but they're essentially in the same place. Maybe they can start there. Who knows? But if Porsha's coming back to Atlanta Housewives, I'm here for it. I'm definitely here for it because it's time. 14 seasons, but 15 seasons now. I don't know. We'll see. Switching gears a little bit. So, word on the curb is that media icon Wendy Williams suffers from, they say, of aphasia and front lobial dementia, allegedly. And before I get into that, for those of you out there that feel like it's karma for the many, many years she was talking about people, A lot of y'all talk about people at your job and your family, your neighbors, even your own friends. Y'all do that on a regular basis. Y'all just mad at Wendy because she gets paid to do it. Now that I've got that out of my system for right now, you just never know when the intrusive thoughts will pop back up. That's a fucked up thing to say. I would never wish any complications, any regression in a person's in a person on anybody. And there is really no record of a person coming out of any kind of dementia back to life. If anything, dementia, especially this kind of dementia that she has, or this reporting that she has, she more than likely does not have a lot of time left. Now, I may or may not watch the documentary that's coming out tomorrow. I saw the clip of her with Angela White, aka Black China. I was just like, she does not look well. Just like the rest of you, I've been out here and I did watch the thing she did a couple years ago, which most of that revolved around Kevin Hunter and the affair for 10 years with this yoga instructor and getting pregnant and all this other stuff. And even then, the decline was already starting to happen. Because here you have a woman who, what she's gone through, a lot of women have gone through. You go into a relationship, you go into a marriage in good faith in the hopes that this person will not break your heart. You give them all the trust in the world and you hope that they don't break your heart. But what ended up happening is you have somebody that came into your life at a somewhat vulnerable time and ultimately took advantage and benefited greater off of your hard work. And the cheating started early, before little Kevin came along. I watched the last documentary, and she said that. Yeah, she stayed with him. I'm in love. I'm gonna look past it. We're gonna work through it or whatever. We've heard that before, right? So if we know that it happens to a lot of women, some as close as like a cousin or a sister or an aunt, and Wendy is a woman, why is the treatment different? Bruce Willis has a similar condition. They're roughly around, well, Bruce is, I think, 10 years older than Wendy. You just never know, man. Like, the stuff that you're going through in life, that shit can take you down. That shit could hit you at any point in your life. And it has nothing at all to do with what your profession is or how you showcase your talent. Like, none of what she's going through, in my eyes, takes away from the career and how iconic she is. And you're talking to somebody that used to stream her New York City radio show down in Texas in my Air Force office. I was listening to her and Charlemagne, and yes, I was streaming the day. I was streaming the radio show the day her and Whitney got into it. Her and Mariah got into it. Um, I think the total situation was before but as one of her day one fans, yeah, you couldn't convince me or get me to get on the bandwagon that her dealing with this, or even before this, her dealing with her husband messing around on her as some kind of get back for her talking about celebrities. No more, no less than what's in the magazines. No more, no less what you discuss at your dinner table. It She gets paid to do it, and she's entertaining and very talented. You know, our show wasn't on the air for for almost 13, 14 seasons for nothing. But you know what they say about opinions, like if clearly you two were also watching to be aware that she was talking about people. And I've always been a firm believer of it's not what people say, it's what you respond to. And clearly, if you're responding, the shit is true. But it's, you know, looking at her condition now, like, I don't know if it was like her stress, hair falling out, like her hair is thinner. She doesn't have the wigs on. She doesn't. She looks even more frail now. And it's like, well, goddamn, this is pretty bad. Um, I may or may not watch the documentary. Like I said, you know, I don't get what exactly. Maybe somebody out there can answer this for me. The relationship, like between her and her siblings, and is it honestly a case of somebody is hiding Wendy from them or keeping them from Wendy? Because when I was watching the first documentary, I remember her brother and one of her sisters was in it talking about, you know, life growing up and stuff like that. And I was just like, okay, so are you guys around? But then fast forward, like, you know, their mom passed away, and I didn't know, we didn't know about that until it had already, way after it already happened. And there was like news reports that like they they weren't talking or speaking, and Winnie didn't know about it until way after it already happened or something like that. So it made me think, are they not that close? So fast forward to this documentary. I'm on the bike at the gym. I believe it was yesterday. And one of the news channels out of that's on the TV is out of DC, and they had a niece or a cousin or one of her family members they interviewed, and I was just like, where's all this family coming from? And there's word on the curb that they're trying to block the premiere of the documentary, because at this point they're under the consensus that it is exploitative, and I'm leaning towards that it is. But you also know that she's broke, or you're claiming that she is, and she's in the facility to get better. I think it's to get better, but because it's like you don't really get better from dementia, you actually get worse. Um, it's a degenerative condition, and I don't think there's any amount of therapy. I don't think there's any amount of medication that will help you bounce back. So I don't. I'm like, shouldn't you be at the facility? Shouldn't you be filing for conservatorship? Um, File for estate administration. Like where's that? It's just sad all the way around. And I'm particularly sad because I am a fan of Wendy Williams. Have been for most of my life, almost half my life actually. And I wouldn't wish any of these conditions on my worst enemy or most disliked celebrity or whatever. Um, and I don't know if it's the Panasonic that got y'all saying the wild shit that y'all are saying these days, but God forbid that shit happens to you, um, anybody that you love. Because trust and believe, if you actually think what it is that y'all actually think, a lot more people will be having that shit. But those of us that went to school, I'm like, yeah, that's not how that works. There's a lot of people out here that are saying, years and years of alcoholism could cause your brain, in addition to your liver, to shrink and all this other stuff. And it's just like, well, damn, if that's the case, if years and years of drinking, a lot of us will be fucked up come our late 50s. It's just a shame all around because of what she's brought to the culture and how much she's entertained us and for how long. If you guys watch the Lifetime documentary tomorrow, come back into the comment section and tell me how it is, or I might do a review myself. I don't know, but it's it's looking even sadder and worse than the first documentary. And is she getting any money from it? I don't know. I don't know, but this has been a pretty shitty Black History Month so far. Earlier this week, before I get up out of here, earlier this week, I want to say rest in peace to Hydeia Broadbent. What a legacy, what a life, and such inspirational work at erasing the stigma around AIDS and HIV. Um, And there's a lot of reasons why her passing is so crushing to not only a lot of celebrities, but to us regular folks who are around my age and older, watching in the early 90s talk shows at a time where, Ryan White had just passed. Um, Ignorance and homophobia was at an all-time high. Conservatives and politicians were slow to render aid and finance science and research and work towards a cure. And people thought that HIV and AIDS was a gay man's disease. At that time, we're talking probably about like 15, 20 years. They thought, oh, well, any person that has it obviously got it from being a whore or whatever. And people thought it was contagious. Hence why Ryan White was treated the way that he was treated. So picture this. Early 90s, early to mid 90s, you have a beautiful little brown skinned queen on the Oprah show. I believe she was also on Montel, and I believe she was even on Ricky Lake. Almost said Rick James. Ricky Lake, I think Donahue and Sarah Jesse Raphael telling her story. And the range of knowledge that people had, it was, oh, you get it from being gay. Oh, you must have been, you must have got it through anal sex. They weren't even at the point where I think they thought that women got it too. But you can also get it through a blood transfusion. That was starting to perk up. But when you see a little black girl who I believe she was born with it, that expanded people's perception and knowledge of the disease. It is actually a reality. It's like, wow, you didn't ask for this. And anybody that has it or has had it and has passed away from it, none of them were asking for it. Here you have a girl that was, I believe, born with it. And she's telling her story. They only gave her X amount of months to live. And here she is, I think 7 or 8 years old at the time, telling her story. And with knowledge, we can start to disintegrate the stigma. And that's what she was doing. And she not only did that, she defied statistics. She defied expectations of life. She lived to be almost, 40 years old? And she passed away. And I want anybody that comes to my channel or who has come to my channel to say her name. And raise it high. It's Mr. Fox, the I Refuse podcast. Thank you for coming to the channel. Oh, I gotta get off here and get some tissue or something because that young lady was very special to a lot of people. So yeah, this is the I Refuse podcast. I'm Mr. Fox. We're everywhere you get your podcast, at I Refuse Podcast on the Twitter, Instagram, _ between the words. And we will catch you guys later. Peace. Wendy, like the bag. This is the I Refuse